So I'll just start the recording. So welcome everyone to today's webinar, The Power of Networking. It's the first of many from Together Spatial and GIS Jobs Australia. If you have any questions at any time, just feel free to interrupt me or type them into the chat. But yes, we will kick off. If I can click the right button, go there. All right, so the first point that I really wanted to make was that networking is about who you know. Sorry, say that again. Network is not about who you know, it's about who knows you and why they should. So that's what we're going to cover today. It's sort of that whole who knows you and why they should know you and how to actually improve that. So let's go to the next one. So one of the things I really wanted to point out right from the start was that many roles are filled before they're advertised. So if we're using networking, so in this context of this webinar, we're using networking as a career progression technique to get your next role, to get known by people. It has the same context if you're using networking for business use, that you want to get the next job project, or you want to find someone to collaborate with, or you're at the other side, you're actually looking for people for your workplace or your project. So most people will try to apply for jobs through the generic job websites. Here in Australia, we've got Seek and Indeed and a few others. And the problem when you are applying is that you're then competing with everyone else who's pressing that apply button. So what we really wanted to point out here is that, opportunities move through trusted professional networks before they get to those job pages. And so if you can improve your visibility, then that will create options before those organizations go out to market or start to think about advertising. They'll think about people they know in their networks first. So welcome everyone who's been joining. So those first part of it. So what networking is and is not. So it's not selling yourself to strangers. The whole point of networking is to get known and continue to build that network or that circle of people who know you. And so don't be just, if you're looking for a job, the last thing that you should be doing is just connecting with someone that you don't know and go, do you have a job? Because it's rare that someone that you'll connect with has a job right now. It's rare that they have a project about to start. You might strike that, but if you build up that relationship over time, then you're more likely to be in the forefront of someone's mind when they're thinking of people to hire. So it's not about collecting LinkedIn connections or whichever networking platform you want to use. It's not about getting the most followers or the most likes, like on social media. Yes, that helps with broadcasting your message, but it doesn't mean that those people know who you are. So what you want to try and do is, rather than just randomly connecting with people, actually building professional relationships over time. So it's about connecting, reconnecting, engaging. It's like a long drawn out conversation that you want to have with people. So the next part is that hidden job market. And I sort of mentioned that earlier, that, so many roles are, they're discussed informally, whether that's within the hiring team, whether that's in the project team, whether that's, the manager just going, all right, we need some people. So they're going to be discussed in one way or another before they're advertised. Now, if businesses can save money by not having to advertise, that's a bonus, for them. So they will think about, right, who's appropriate for this role. And that might be that, you might be talking to your manager, might have a one-on-one each month or whatever. And that you'll be going, we're really struggling to keep up with the work. We're going to need to get someone on. And, when you start to sort of have those discussions, you might be able to go, as that person, either as the manager or as the person in the team, you might be go, I know someone who would really be good for this. They're currently looking, and they've got exactly the right skills. Because those referrals that we're talking about, it reduces risk, and employers want to reduce risk, reduce cost, all reduce time, all of those things, add to a more streamlined process. It adds to efficiency and productivity. So you're not having to wait weeks for someone to, go through multiple rounds of interviews and advertising there and waiting for resumes to come in, review them all and go all through that sort of stuff. That takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort. And at the bottom line, for any organization, that costs you dollars. So hiring managers are looking for, that trust amongst their own existing networks. So those networks, both internally where they work, externally through professional organizations, and we'll talk about that just shortly. And the more that you can build trust with those people, the more likely that you're going to be front of mind. So types of networking that we're talking about here, we have peer networking. So that's where, the people in your organization, you're working on common projects and you're learning and you're sharing. So that can be, if you're in a small organization, that peer network can be pretty small. But if you're in a big organization, that could be across business units, that could be across the country, across the world, all of those people who you connect with at that sort of learning and sharing level. There's mentor networking. So that's where, as opposed to, your peer group, you're looking for advice from someone who's been in the industry for a while or longer than you, and or vice versa. You might be looking to provide that guidance and perspective to new people in the industry. And previously, the Geospatial Council of Australia had a great mentoring program, and that really helped connect early career people with people who have been in the industry and provide that guidance perspective. Now, when you have those mentoring networks, one, you're doing that one-on-one, so those you get to know each other, you get to know what skills they have, you get to know what areas they have for their expertise, and you start to build up that trust. And so on either side, you then have that scenario where if you're in a situation, you go, oh, we need someone in our organization to do this. You might think of your mentor or your mentee in those scenarios. The next broader level we're talking about is, those industry networks. And that's where you might be going to networking functions where they're either social or professional, and you're starting to see people who are in your industry but working in other companies, either doing the same sort of role or a similar role, and it could be at different career levels. People starting out to people who have been in it a while. It could be different industry segments. If the spatial industry has, so many different segments. You've got utilities, you've got mining, you've got, environmental, you've got, land information with, cadastral data and all those sorts of things. It's just getting wider and wider where spatial information is being used. And so you want to see about where you can leverage off and network with people at those industry events. Okay, so where networking happens, and I've sort of just touched on this again, but those monthly, quarterly, yearly association and communities, and that's part of what we're trying to do here. Trying to build up that network so you can have people who you can connect with. There's events and webinars and those social meetups here in Australia. There's GeoRabble, there's Brisbane Geospatial Network. In Perth, there's GeoGeeks. In South Australia, there's the South Australian Geospatial Network, or Geospatial Association. It's SAGA, SAGA. So you'll find that there'll be organisations in your local area, in your state, that you can leverage off. And if you're looking to find out about those things, just reach out to me and I will certainly point you in the direction where I know about them. There's online platforms like LinkedIn, like Together Spatial, where you can connect with people, you can start discussions, you can let people know about what you do, you can let people know about the projects you work on, you can start to build those connections with people across the industry, and that's how you start to get known. And at the workplace and your project environments, you're going to start, once again, it's that, who you're working with and who's in your workplace and who can you talk to in those environments to get people to know who you are, to get people to know what skills you have, and to get people to know the sort of things that you do and how you do it and how you work. So let's talk about how to network authentically. And one of the big things is where I see so many people go wrong is they use, the LinkedIn, the Together Spatials, the social media platforms. They use it really transactionally. They, I need this. Can you help me? I need a job. Do you have one? But that's not being curious, and it's not it's very transactional. It's very cold. You haven't learnt about that organization or that person. So the way to be really authentic in your networking is to be curious, ask people about what they do. Um, ask ask them how they use GIS in their organization, or that project that they just posted about, what did they find good and bad? What sort of people worked on the project? What sort of skills did you need? Ask questions and listen to the responses. And then over time, you then build up that understanding of what that organization does, what that person does. And then you can start to look at how you can offer value to that person or that organization. You can have the best product, or you could be the best GIS professional or industry professional going round. But if the person you're speaking to doesn't have a need for your service, or they don't have a problem or something that you can solve, then why would they offer you a job, or why would they bring you onto that project? So what you need to do is find out what those organizations need, what their pain points are. And that's where you're asking those questions, you're listening. And then once you can figure out what those pain points are, then you can offer that value rather than just offering help. So hopefully this is all sort of making sense. And we'll have some time at the end for you to just jump in and ask questions if you want. And hopefully I'm not going too fast that it's just going over people's heads, or it's sort of, gelling and making sense. But yeah, so one of the sort of things that I really want to try and say is that develop simple networking habits, attending an event a month, like this, an online webinar, a local networking forum, a industry presentation, a conference, those sorts of things. Try them, do them regularly. And that's what networking is all about, is it's that regular consistency, and trying to connect with people. Reach out to one new contact a week. So if you connected with just one new contact with a week, that's 50 new contacts a year. And so you start to research people, you see what people are posting on LinkedIn or on Together Spatial or wherever you're doing your, social media. You research and connect with those companies and those people that you would either want to work with, or you want to understand more about. So research and connect with one person, not just connecting, but actually starting that conversation. So following up with intention, making sure that, I've connected with that person, and that's not the end of the story. It's all right. They've posted again, I'm going to comment again, or I'm going to reach out in a couple of months' time and go, we chatted about that project you did the end of last year. How's your projects going this year? Follow up and maintain that. You're building a relationship, like building a friendship. Just sort of, have a conversation and then expect this friendship to last forever. You sort of, you build it, you do things, that relationship grows. And when it starts to grow, that's when you're going to then maintain that network. So if you're starting, just starting small with one a week, then eventually you're going to go, it's going to be a good network of people that you can leverage off. You want to stay visible within that network. So, social media has meant that, networking takes on a whole new dimension these days. It's not just about attending those functions. It's about, am I visible on the different platforms? And it's one of the things I really struggle with sometimes with, people joining a group or a network or whatever that aren't active. You don't want to be overactive. Depending, you can be in some respects, but you want to be visible and be posting yourself and commenting and being consistent. So when people go, I need someone for that role or that project or whatever it happens to be, they can then really know who you are. Sharing insights about your project rather than just giving a project update. Help people about, what tools you used, what you found good and bad. And, there's good and bad parts about, all different software, all different techniques, all different, industries and whatever. So those insights are where people are going to get the value out of it. They're going to go, oh, I've had that same problem. And that way, you start to then become an expert in that area when you start to share those insights, and people will then reach out to you if they have issues or if they need assistance or, and stay connected regularly. And not only when you're job hunting, networking is about the long term. It's not just about, I'm going to leave my current job or I've been made redundant and then I should start thinking about networking. Think about it in the long term. So start now, build over time, and then when you're looking for a job, then you can start to use that network to try and find that job. And that leads into this exact point. So many people I see that only network when they need something. They need a new job, they need a new project, or they need someone for a team. They have a problem with, using FME or whatever. And so they're only networking when they have that problem. And that's not to say that you won't get a response, but people will be more open to responding to you if they know who you are and have seen your value coming the other way. Try to avoid sales-driven approaches, that whole, thanks for connecting. Do you have a job for me? Try to avoid that at all costs. Always follow up, always be consistent, always be in the game for the long term. So some practical next steps before we open it up to questions. So map out your current network, identify gaps and opportunities in where you'd like to build that network, because you might be going, all right, I've been in the industry for 5 years. I'm interested, I'll probably stay in this next role for the next couple of years, but I'd like to move into these areas. And if that's not something that your current organisation has that pathway, then you might go, all right, what are the sort of organisations that I want to work for? And so you can start to map out those gaps and opportunities, and then just commit to one small action this week and then one small action next week. Like I said, connect with someone, comment on a post, post something yourself, and, do it regularly and do it consistently. Do it in a way that's sharing value and giving some credibility around yourself. So just my final thoughts for this session for today. So your career is built through relationships, not resumes alone. So once again, yes, keep your resume up to date, keep it up to date on the LinkedIns and the Together Spatials and stuff like that. Build the relationships over time. Networking is a long-term investment. I don't know how many people that I've connected with 20 years ago when I first started GIS Jobs who I'm still connected with in one way or another. Or, 5 years ago, I helped them find a job and I'm able to so they reach out to me again. So start before you need it. And that's the big key. Don't just start networking because all of a sudden you need something. Start and be active. And just to reiterate that, this what I put up right at the start, networking is not about who you know, it's about who knows you and why they should. So yeah, that's my presentation for today. I hope you've had um, uh, some value out of it. If you have any questions, you can either type them in the chat or just jump online and say out your question. And we've got about 10 minutes that I can answer questions. So yeah, if anyone has something, just let me know.
Hi, Dean. I'm Arslan. So, you said that the referrals reduce the risks of employers. So, like, in what way could you explain it?
Yeah. So if I know you and I know about your background and your projects and the work you've done somewhere else, I may have worked with you. Um, by if 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 an organization needs someone new, then that referral from someone who knows them is obviously going to streamline the process. It's going to allow them to be more confident that you're going to be suitable for the role. It's not to say that they won't interview you, but immediately they're going to go, we've already know a little bit about this person. We've already had some solid uh, referrals of this person. There's some references of them, whether that's been working or whatever. And so it really reduces the risk of that person not working out. And there's so many times, people can interview really well, but they may not be good in the actual job. And so if someone knows about how they've worked in the past, they've worked with them, then that actually then goes a long way to reducing that risk.
Thanks, Dean.
Any other questions? Any other observations? Or it doesn't even have to be about this networking. It can be about, points in your career or options that you'd like to investigate.
Mm, Yes, Dean. I have one more question. Like when we applying for any particular job, so like we are giving resume and cover letter. So sometimes I use help with Chat GPT to write cover letter for me, like by giving my resume like abstract. So like, is it fair or not? Because I was confused. Like most of the time when you're applying for a job, like wait, you are applying for 3, 4 jobs like per week or so every single one you have to write a cover letter. So I was confused. Like,
Yeah, like I, I'm okay with using, Chat GPT and stuff like that to start the process of your cover letter. Don't use it as the end of it. So get it to put together a good structure. And my recommendation for a structure of a cover letter is where you address the selection criteria. So try to avoid what I call the essay type cover letter, where you're just, it's paragraph after paragraph of you just telling the reader about you and your career. The main reason for that is most people won't read that. They want to actually see that you've addressed the selection criteria and that you've got those answers. So use ChatGPT to structure it in a way, but then go through it and then go, all right, I need to put in a good example based on my resume or where I've been able to be successful here. And so always revise what ChatGPT. Yes, it's getting better, but I don't use it as the end process. Is my recommendation.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Melissa, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I was actually wondering sort of whether it's worth going the other way in the ChatGPT in any sense. So I used to always create my cover letters in that sort of bullet point sort of system. I found that easier, or just saying sort of, here's my breaking it down into sections. But now people say that that's a very clear that's sort of a calling card that something was made in ChatGPT, because it also does that. Would you advise that we try to distinguish our cover letters from looking like they could be like when we've made them manually? Yeah.
At the end of the day, what the readers of your cover letter want to find is the answers to their questions. And if you have it, if the selection criteria says experience with ArcGIS Pro, as a one selection criteria, my recommendation is you put that dot point and then you answer it. And then, because immediately when the person's reading it, they'll go, I can see that they've got ArcGIS experience. There's a paragraph or two about that. They may not even read it. They might they go. And so I still think that it's best to have it that broken up scenario. And the other thing it does is if a recruitment organization or company is pushing it through an application tracking tool, they're looking for keywords. And so if you put the dot point for the selection criteria, that'll have the keyword in it normally, like my example, experience with ArcGIS. So you've got one tick for, the keyword that they're looking for. So I do believe, sort of part of your question, I think, should you structure it to look less like ChatGPT? By all means, structure it to be less robotic. Put some flair to it, but don't make it a big essay, because people just won't read that big essay sort of scenario. Is the what tends to happen, and like if they see you as a really good candidate, then they might start to read. But the whole point of your cover letter and your resume is to get you to that next step, to that interview stage. And if it's not shouting out to someone, here's a good candidate, then they won't read it at all. So just try and structure it, and I'm more than happy to have a look at those things for you if you applying for things and want someone else to just have a look at. All right, we've probably got time for one or two more questions if anyone has any. Hello. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Go for it.
Is it better to build a personal portfolio before actually networking, or should networking comes first? In geospatial work, for example, we can build and publish GIS or WebGIS apps in cloud environments, which tends to be more effective early on reaching out to people or building a visible portfolio.
Certainly think having a portfolio is a great idea, especially because, you know, the geospatial industry is so visual. And so you still need to have your resume and your cover letters and all that sort of thing. But I really think, you know, a good portfolio is really beneficial. Sometimes you can't do that because of, you know, who you work for or whatever. You might just be able to do a screenshot or something rather than a link off to a web page or whatever. But I do think it's valuable to have a good portfolio, and if that portfolio is actually showing your skills, you know, if it's using like an ArcGIS Online experience builder, or if it's using some HTML or whatever, showing that I think is really quite valuable.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to wrap it up there, only because I think the Zoom is probably just about to run out anyway. But yeah, we'll be doing these webinars weekly on a various range of topics. So stay tuned. We've also just released for the Australian members the salary survey for 2026. So if you're interested in participating in that, please do. Thank you all for attending today, and I'll make the recording available